We got a lot of good things accomplished last year, particularly in the area of serving our students with some enhanced career services programs. We've really focused on getting students into internships, even co-ops, now that we have some programs that lends itself to, particularly in business. That's something that we're very, very proud of. The other thing is we had a record enrollment last year. Prior to about 2 years ago, Anderson had never been anywhere near being the largest private university in the state. So we think the growth here is going to continue because we have new programs, and as long as students keep wanting to have a wonderful on-campus education as well as wonderful online educational opportunities, we think we're going to continue to grow. Our geography is good, our brand has never been stronger, and we have some very good students. We're getting some of the top students in the state. Last year we had more Palmetto Fellows than all but one private university in the state. Nursing is large, but it's actually our College of Health Professions that includes some other students. Our kinesiology students who oftentimes are going to go on to graduate school to be physical therapists, whether they go to school here or somewhere else for physical therapy school. And then we do have 2 full classes of our physical therapy program. We've been building that program, and it's a 3-year program. So we have first-year students and second-year students. Next year we'll add third-year students to the growth. If a person doesn't necessarily have a degree, they can also begin to improve their credentials and their knowledge by getting a certificate in a certain area that doesn't take as long as a degree, of course, to finish. And our market for that really is individuals in the community as opposed to our students who are full-time students here. Oftentimes we have businesses that will want us to do a specific training module within their company. And we have a team now over in our Center for Innovation and Digital Learning, Innovative and Digital Learning, to work with individual companies to design online educational programs, whether they carry credit, certificate credit, or whether they're just specific to that company and there's no credit. We can do that now. And many of the traditional research university and traditional engineering programs teach theory first and practice as a last element of the training. And while that is a very valid way to teach engineering, it produces something of a different effect than a program that starts out teaching practice first and theory later. One of the advantages of that is that I think we all know this, when you actually do something, you learn a lot about the nature of what you're doing. And when you can learn information by doing, when you have a mentor or a tutor, so to speak, you retain that knowledge. You don't forget it as easily as something that you've read in a book and you have just thought about. You've actually done it. And so we think that our program will address the needs of local industry that really need engineers, and need engineers that can step in the workplace and get started to work right away. We just hired our dean, and that dean is Dr. Giuseppe Elli. He has spent the last 5 years as the head of biomedical engineering at Texas A&M University in preparation to come here to be our founding dean. The first thing that we did, like many institutions, probably all institutions in higher education in the spring, was because we knew very little about this virus, everybody took the precaution, or not necessarily the precaution, but is both a reaction and a precaution to get students off campus and at home, so that they could best quarantine themselves and best stay away from potential infection. We don't count necessarily on media outlets or other sources as much as we do the Centers for Disease Control. We certainly listen to those things, pay attention to them, research them, but we're getting our primary guidance from the CDC and South Carolina DHEC. Our students will be required to wear masks inside buildings, as will all of us here on campus. Now it's possible that someone may forget a mask, but we actually have permanent masks that we've given students that they can launder or wash out and keep fresh. But then we also have these throwaway masks. The 6-foot rule is very important, and we'll have to remind people of that all the time because we're social beings and we like to be close to one another. And sometimes we get caught up in the conversation and we don't remember to do what we need to do. But I think we're getting more accustomed to that, and we will as the weeks go by. Our goal is to not have one infection, but realistically we know that most colleges that are going to have face-to-face instruction this year are going to have some infections. I think the question is, when does it get to a point when it's more than you can handle or is more than is advisable to have? And that's a question that each individual institution will have to decide on their own. But we have protocols in place for quarantining international students as they come in to go back to school. They have to stay in quarantine for at least 2 weeks. All of our student athletes will be tested in advance of any kind of practice that they may have this fall. Our South Atlantic Conference presidents voted unanimously to not conduct competitive events, so we won't be playing each other. But we will allow for some very safe coach overseen practices with our teams to keep them in shape and keep them interested and engaged in their sport. A number of years ago, we made a decision to become a leader in mobile learning technology, and we've reached that status. There are less than 30 universities in the world that have this designation. And so we've been doing mobile learning and online learning and what we would call remote learning for a long time. And so our faculty are more adept than that than many faculty members at other institutions. Our students are more adept at using the technology as a real learning tool to access information anywhere in the world that you happen to be at that time. And I have to say that our faculty just did an amazing job of transitioning to the mobile learning technology as a primary means of conducting their coursework during those weeks in the spring when we were not on campus. We can divide a class into a group of 2 or 3 groups. For instance, Tuesday, Thursday classes. Half the class would come in person to the class on Tuesday, and the other half would come on Thursday. And if you're not in person, you're in your residence hall room or the library or wherever you may be in a study room on campus, watching remotely the class. What we and most institutions, probably all of them, are doing with our traditional students is we're doing remote learning. True online courses are those that are structured to be delivered online with most of the content online, and they don't involve as much of the professor standing in front of the room conducting a lecture or a discussion by video. What we're finding is there are lots of different creative ways that teachers can teach and students can learn. Someone has to think about it for a few minutes and come up with an alternative way of doing it. It may not be the preferred way of doing it, but when you're in a bind, it works and suffices for what you need to accomplish. And every faculty member hired in the future, whether they're teaching online or not, will have to be trained and demonstrate proficiency in designing online coursework and conducting it online. So that's one of the major changes I think we will have going forward. I do think that we will probably, in the traditional university, we'll probably add more online elements to our delivery because oftentimes that enables people to have outside employment, particularly adult students, if they're trying to go to school and hold down a job and family obligations at the same time. As future generations of students become more and more used to technology as a part of their educational landscape, that's just not going to be an issue. That'll be more of an expectation, we believe. Right now, we're just focusing on making sure that we can deliver a wonderful teaching and learning experience for our students. What we need to do is make sure this year is successful in allowing students to get the coursework that they need, the credits they need, the academic credit that they need to not be delayed in their attainment of their degrees and in the attainment of getting on with their careers. In terms of students, we have a record number of new students this fall. I know that a lot of people have worked awfully hard to make that happen. But we have always said as a Christian university that we also acknowledge that God adds a great measure of blessing to everything that we do that's successful at AU. And we believe that. Part of that is due to some new programs that we started, and one of those is lacrosse. So we brought in 30 new lacrosse players. We brought in, I think, about 15 new cybersecurity majors. We started a cybersecurity program this year, and we also started a PhD program, and we have around 50 students in that new PhD program. And so part of the growth is due to that. But in terms of the traditional enrollment, we continue to see higher retention. Most institutions would love to have the retention that we have, which this year is around 86% of freshmen from one year to the other. The average is probably less than 70%. There is the College of Arts and Sciences, which includes your things like the natural sciences, math, English, foreign languages, history, social programs, psychology. Then we have the College of Education, which is teacher education, offering through the master's degree, and then we'll have we're developing an EDD that will be available within the next year. In that college, we have the School of Interior Design. It's not a College of Interior Design because there's just one interior design program, so it's called a school as opposed to a college, which is a collection of academic programs. Business, which offers multiple programs, including, they have one of the tracks in the PhD program that we have. So there's that. There's the College of Health Professions, as I mentioned earlier, the College of Public Safety and Homeland Security. South Carolina School of the Arts, which is equivalent to a College of Visual and Performing Arts and other institutions, a conservatory, and then we have the new College of Engineering. College of Christian Studies offers programs from bachelor's level to the doctorate, including the PhD. They also offer a Doctor of Ministry program. And that's been a growing program at AU. There has always been goodness at this institution. When Diane and I first came here 18 years ago, one of the things that we noticed very early on was we noticed the heart of people who worked here. We didn't need to work on that. What we needed to work on were some organizational issues. We needed to work on our culture. It needed to be far more entrepreneurial and innovative. I have learned that oftentimes people outside your own town know more about your growth and your success than some people who live right next door to the campus, and that's not a criticism, it's just a reality sometimes, because when you live close to an institution, you take it for granted, or you have it in this conceptual box that you constructed in your mind years ago, and you don't think that it can grow beyond that box, so to speak. That's one of the things that I have learned. I have learned that too. Also, that's related to that, though. Once people in your community know what's going on the campus, and they realize that there is growth and refinement and change, if it's going in the right direction, they get behind it and they support it and they're proud of it. Another thing that I've learned is that Anderson, the city of Anderson, the county of Anderson, the upstate is a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to do what we do. Colleges cannot be static. You have to be rethinking the way you do things all the time. If you're not growing, you're falling behind. If you're not advancing your knowledge and your ability and new technology and new ways of doing what you do, you're falling behind, and we don't want to fall behind. That's very important. Just like an industry has research and development, we have research and development too here with our own programs. We're constantly looking at what we need to be doing, what we need to be offering, what the community needs, what the region and state and the nation need, and trying to respond to those needs. We had a page that was, we called it in the beginning our COVID-19 page. Now it's called the Journey Ahead section of our website. So you can access that on our website, see all of our protocols, all the things that we're doing to minimize the spread of infection on our campus. Lots of Q&A on there that is particularly interesting to students and parents, but it's also out there for anyone who wants to see what we're doing. We're getting some inquiries from media about some of the things that we're doing because they had heard that we've been doing some things very, very well. And so that's always flattering when you get those inquiries. We are for and about students and about education. That is our mission, that is our purpose at Anderson, and we have an affinity with other colleges and universities, whether public or private, Christian or secular. We are educators, and we want to do everything we can to help students learn, whether they're here or whether they're somewhere else.